Welcome to Human Powered, the podcast about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. And today I have Fergus Dyer-Smith, CEO and founder of Wooshi. Fergus, hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining me today. So Wooshi is an AI-enabled content business with your team of roughly 40 people. Let's talk about AI. How can AI contribute to your team being even more high-performing?
AI is the next workforce, really. That's the mind shift that you have to make. I've got numerous examples now, but one in particular, very recently, we lost our creative directors, not because of any particular reason. They just decided they wanted to go off and do something else. And we didn't replace them because we have a product that we've built, which is actually, it's built for agencies like ours, but it's an AI product. Part of what it does is it helps with creative ideation and responding to briefs and all this sort of thing. And we just haven't needed to replace it. And so there are roles and there are functions that are going to change. I think the way to think about it is you're going to get to a point, and we're getting there. We're already getting there. So the way we often talk about our product when we're pitching it into customers is to say, don't think of this like a piece of software. You want to think of this like you've just been given almost an unlimited supply of quite intelligent interns, all studying different things at universities. So you've got, some are studying economics, some are studying psychology, some are studying marketing. And so they've all got a certain level of expertise, and they're smart people, and they can just go off and do work for you. If you think of it in those terms, that you think of it slightly differently. It's no longer sort of a piece of software that sits on your laptop. It's like you've just got unlimited resources for people to go off and do stuff. But that then also starts to change your thinking around, well, how do I run my companies? And there's instances now, not in our business necessarily, but in all sorts of companies where, I've seen people saying, that's it. I'm almost running my entire business, me on my own, doing a couple of million a year with nothing but AI and AI agents. There's the famous quote out of Sam Altman about a year ago where he said, how long until we have the $1 billion one-person company? Well, Instagram sold for $1.4 billion. And that only had 13 people. That was 12 years ago. So feels conceivable, doesn't it? So I think maybe for our generation, it's harder. But as you get down the stack, people will get the way you think about company building, business building will be completely different. Some irony in the fact that the first jobs to go are likely to be the sort of white collar worker, knowledge workers. No one anticipated that. Everyone thought it would be like the blue collar work. Although someone put a great quote out on Twitter, which was, I want an AI that does laundry so that I can do art, not an AI that does art so I now have to do laundry.
So Fergus, you mentioned there, your creative director left and you haven't needed to replace him. You've got an AI product that basically does that role. If that's the case, how do you convince people to invest the time and the effort to use AI if they may then be concerned that it's going to replace them?
Well, you've sort of picked on the question of the moment, really, isn't it? Which is, is AI going to take my job, basically? The answer is yes, it is, really. No one wants to really hear that. So what you'll hear is versions of AI won't take your job, someone using AI will take your job. I'm much more on the side of, no, I think AI is going to take your job. Now, the question is when, first of all. The way I think about it is, look, AI is a task sort of replacer. It will start with tasks. So it will slowly take away tasks. And if your job essentially is one task, then you're probably more at risk at this point. So, for example, if you're, I wouldn't say copywriting was the best thing to get into from a career perspective. Don't get me wrong. Great copywriters are going to be tough to replace, but you don't always need great copywriting. 90% of the job can now be done, or could be done today with AI, and that's only going to increase. It's going to happen anyway, is the sort of response. What you need to try and sort of get to grips with as a business, I would have thought, is, okay, this being the case, how are we going to adapt, change, shift our model so that it's still relevant in a new world? If everyone is wrong about AI taking the jobs, well, you'll be all right. If they're right, then you'll still be all right because you've planned for that eventuality. That's my view on it. I think that there are still some things which are going to be hard. Taste and judgment are still things that are very human. And I think that's going to be some time before, an AI really knows what, the latest fashion trend is going to be and why it's cool. They're just so ingrained in sort of stuff we don't fully understand. But once you've got a sort of fix on what that new trend or style is, AI is going to be incredible at sort of running that out at scale. So yeah, I think it's inevitable that this is the direction we're going, and it's going to be great. I don't think people should be fearful of it. I think quite the opposite. I think it's going to lead to a level of abundance and opportunity. Humans are really good at finding things to do. It might be a bit scary in the interim, but this is technology over and over and over again. You see it every time there's a new technology. This happens.
You mentioned there how we all need to adapt and change and shift our business models. Tell us a bit about your plans with Wooshi and how you're going to continue to integrate AI over the short, medium, and long term.
So Wooshi started off life as a pure online two-sided marketplace. It was a place where you could come and register as a video maker, and brands would come on, post up video projects, and you could pitch for the opportunity to work on those projects. And we were just a matchmaker, sat in the middle. So we're a bit like Fiverr before Fiverr existed. And that was the business model for years. And then over time, what happened was larger companies, larger brands started using the service. And as a consequence, we had to put in more and more service, more and more account managers. And eventually we got to the point where that was the majority of the work. So we looked a lot more like an agency than we did a two-sided platform, because at that point, we then became sort of the ordering entity, if you like, on this marketplace. We were the ones ordering it, and we were servicing the clients like an agency would. We never made anything in the sense that we never, we don't have cameras and go and shoot stuff, but we manage all sorts of productions for businesses all around the world. Now, what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years is we got early access to GPT. So we saw it before ChatGPT, and we were just like, okay, this is big stuff. This is going to change a lot. And we also were starting to think about the agency model and how difficult it was to scale, and trying to find, okay, how do we change the shape of this business even further? And that's where we started just analyzing the processes and the systems that we had in place. So even if they're not documented, they're not official, every business has processes and systems that it follows to get stuff done. And so we just started looking at those, mapping them out, drawing out diagrams. Right, this, client comes here, sales talks to them, passes it on to this person. Then we write a brief, and then from the brief we try and find some data. It's like, there's all these things that we did. We just started looking at all those and saying, well, we could replace that, could get replaced, that could get replaced, that could get replaced. And so step one was, let's build a product that essentially turns our entire agency into a product. That was the goal. Can we create an agency in a box? We did it. So we have this product originally called Wooshi Copilot, but then we had to change the name to Wooshi Assist, thanks to Microsoft. So we built this fantastic product. We use it every day across the business. Everyone uses it, sales, producers, all sorts. Then we started selling it to external agencies mainly, but also marketing teams. So it's used by all sorts of businesses, from Publicis, Toyota, etc. And so we're just going even further with that. So we're looking at it and thinking, okay, how else can we use these tools? So we have another product which is all about video analysis, which again uses AI to look at what's going on within videos, and can we understand why things work as a consequence of what happens within the video, rather than just what's happening on the platform that it's being put. That's really interesting. And I think we're constantly now looking at our own business and saying, do we need to hire for that role, or can we find AI to do that job? Is that a process that could be automated? And increasingly the answer is yes. Now it takes time, takes effort, takes energy, but fundamentally it's trying to look at that business and think through how software is essentially going to replace the humans, which is the great change that is occurring. This movement from, we had software as a service, and now we're going to have service as software, is essentially what the industry would say, I guess.
So you're absolutely embracing this change. You're not having a Kodak moment of like fingers in ears. Everything will be fine. We'll keep doing what we're doing. But rather, you're very aware that this change is coming, and you're embracing it wholeheartedly and moving forward to make the business as high performing as possible with a mix of AI and people.
Yeah, I mean, funny you should pick up on Kodak because I often use that as an example. One of those great stories where they were in the best position. They invented the digital camera. You know, what's his name? Simon Sasson was the inventor of the digital camera. Took it to the senior guys, and they told him, you know, better not tell too many people about this thing. We've got film to sell. You know, and years later, we're put out of business by the thing. That's classic innovator's dilemma type stuff. But yeah, absolutely, we are fully embracing it. My view is this is an inevitability. It's not is this going to happen? Isn't it? No, it is going to happen. It's sort of inevitable that this is the direction of travel. That's what humans are like. Never underestimate the power of convenience. People putting oranges in plastic cups as peeled oranges in plastic cups proves the point. It's people will lean into this, and we're only at the very beginning of it. People forget what ChatGPT's been with us for year and a half, maybe 2 years. That's nothing in the scheme of things. So, and we've got this far already. I just think it's an inevitability. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can get on and think, okay, well, now what?
For many people who are running people businesses, so running agencies and running consultancies, they are a bit concerned and they are a bit scared. And one thing, Fergus, that you talked about was that this is all going to lead to abundance and opportunity. So for people who are listening, who are more in that nervous side of things, tell me more about this abundance and this opportunity.
Okay, well, first of all, it doesn't help you to be nervous and to be worried, because that's an emotive response to a factual outcome. If you accept that it's going to happen, then being worried about it won't change anything. So that's just a human reaction. But I get it. It's like, you know, you've then got to start to think, okay, well, where is the opportunity? So if I was in consultancy, for example, I'd be thinking about, how can AI assist in the delivery of your consultancy? Now, you could argue, well, are they going to even need consultants? And to a degree, probably not. So there's going to be some things where they can go and run a piece of research using an AI off their own back. But humans have limited time. So I can guarantee you're still going to get people that go, yeah, I could go and run it, but that means me shifting out of what I'm doing right now, spending 30 minutes to an hour getting this thing all set up to go off and do the thing. Can you just get it done for me? And I'll pay you to do it. Then you can go off and use AI to run the report. And then when you deliver the report back, think about what happens with reports from consultants. I suspect that a lot of the time those reports end up in drawers, having at best been read once, and perhaps out of those reports are extracted 2 or 3 key themes that then the company that's commissioned the report use as they move forward. Well, what would be better is if that report's any good, is actually know everything in the report is considered in every outcome. We did something recently for Toyota where we looked at competitive analysis across all sorts of YouTube channels. Big old thing, 58 pages of information. There's no conceivable way that they're going to be able to consider all that in any of their new outputs, but AI can. So you can deliver it, which is essentially what we've done. Is that you deliver it with a piece of technology that sits alongside it, or a GPT, or there's lower hanging fruit when it comes to the technology side. But essentially, deliver it with a piece of AI that says, okay, here's the report and an AI that you can now work with when you're doing your next thing. So if you're producing some video content for YouTube, for example, this AI will consider everything in our report in your next output. So there's the way that you deliver the work. There's the fact that humans are just lazy, ultimately, and will look often to pass work off to other people. And then there's the delivery of the information, and it keeps going. Then can you broaden into other areas? Can you think about, how AI might allow you to deliver your information in different ways? I just think there's so much opportunity coming down the pipe, but it takes stepping out a little bit to get to it.
That's great to hear some kind of motivational speaking there to help business leaders to embrace this. And it's not just business leaders who are nervous, it's people in the businesses who are nervous about potentially I might lose a job to AI, and then I might never be able to get another job again. So what's your advice to business leaders about how you can encourage your team to engage with AI and to help the business to become more efficient and make use of this technology?
I understand why people are nervous. Am I going to lose my job? It's different for business leaders than it is perhaps for people that work with them in their teams. There was something recently I read where they were saying if you start to get rid of the sort of lower level team members using AI, eventually what happens what happens? Because the leaders retire, and who's left to fill the gap because they've disappeared? So there is this question around that. There's a great example from, I was in the Science Museum with my kids, and there's one section in there which is all about the telecoms industry. And there's this video playing, and it's from when they moved from the old manual stations where they, put calls through to the automated system. And this guy just sort of nonchalantly says, here they are, here's all the women, and tomorrow they won't have a job, and they're all going to leave. And they're all like happy, happy, happy. And you're thinking, well, these poor women, they've worked there for years and literally overnight lost their job and their careers, really, because they didn't know anything else. But I suspect that a few years later, they were all in other roles doing other things. And I think I would hold on to that as somebody, that other opportunities will come along that you can't even imagine, first of all. So no one would have known, if someone had said, I'm head of social 15 years ago or 20 years ago, no one would have known what you were talking about. There's like, head of social, what do you mean head of social? It's like head of social media. Just no idea what that even meant. New opportunities will present themselves. And so I guess, what's the action that you can take today to try and become better? I would jump headlong into learning how to use these things. So I would use ChatGPT every single day. I'd be using it all the time for almost everything. I would be using it on my phone. It's interesting. The more you use it, the more ways you find to use it. Kids are great with it because they don't have any preconceived ideas of what you should or shouldn't do with these tools. So they'll just throw anything at it. That's just a fantastic place to start. And then you'll start to see other things come along. You'll see other tools that you can get good at. And you'll suddenly realize, actually, if I apply for this new job, I can tell them how I can do the job that they're asking at 5 times the pace and this other thing that they perhaps even thought of. I think that's what will happen.
You've been listening to Human Powered, the podcast all about creating a high-performing agency or consultancy business. Thanks for tuning in. So I think what you're saying is it's about embracing the technology, using it to become more efficient, and then with the time saving that you have, being proactive and working out more things that you can do to add value.
Yes, and it's not getting obsessed with, like, I need to become an expert in AI. That is not the point of this. There are people that are experts in AI. It's about solving problems for people. You are hired at the moment in whatever role that you're currently in to solve a problem for your immediate manager or your the directors or whatever it is. You're solving a problem for that business. Problems don't go away. They just change, shift, get bigger, whatever, adapt. And you just need to do the same. So you just need to be thinking, well, what's the problem that's going to come down the line in the particular place that I am in? So, for example, if you're a copywriter, if you got really good at managing agents within copywriting, building out copywriting agents, and now you can do 100 times the level of output that you could be, that's all of a sudden a really useful entity. So not only can you copyright, you know what good looks like, and you're able to coordinate this whole team of agentic AI copywriters. You haven't really shifted a huge amount. You've just sort of adapted, and you're now perhaps 10, 100 times more valuable.
That's very powerful. Tell us a bit more about what's going on inside of Wooshi. So with regards to this and people adopting AI to become more efficient, to be able to do more, to solve more problems, tell us what's happening inside of Wooshi with regards to this and what people are up to.
There's numerous examples, but so I've got one in particular which I really like. So if you think about the sales function, sales is a tough job, but very rewarding if you're good at it, because you can make a lot of money and you're sort of in control of your own destiny somewhat. So it suits certain people, but it can be frustrating, especially in creative services, because you get a prospect on the phone, they're keen, there's something they want delivered, and you get off and you go, great, we can definitely do that. And then you turn around and you go, right, creative director, I need a couple of ideas, pricing, can you come me back with a price for it? I needed the production brief, a timeline, like all these different things. And 10 days later, you haven't quite got everything, because all the other sales guys, I need the same stuff, and you're in a queue. And then by the time you get everything back, prospect is on to the next thing, is sort of forgotten. It's a tough tough job. And I suspect it's similar for many different services and when you're selling those sorts of things. Well, there's this guy in our company, well, all of them really, but one in particular, he's really sort of grabbed hold of our own product. And now what they're able to do, in fact, all of them have started doing this really, is they can get off the call, they can use this AI product to generate some ideas, come up with a sort of production timeline, work out some pricing, put it all together into a proposal, all within about an hour, and get back to the customer the next day. And it's probably 90% of the way there. There's still the magic need to, but the point is that the prospect's still, wow, okay, great. Yeah, let's get on to that. Let's start talking, let's start negotiating pricing, timeline, all those sorts of things. Just completely change their ability to respond to customers. So that's quite a functional role that's been quite impacted by a tool that was originally designed to help with creative services. It's just changed the way that they can do sales.
That's a brilliant example, because that is an age-old problem that salespeople talk to the prospect and are like, right, I've got to get back to you with something, but they don't have the knowledge available and they've got to wait on the time of other people to become available. Not anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the change that's going on. I sort of heard another one recently as well, where someone was describing how, you get a brief that comes in, and let's say your sort of main creative director looks at it and thinks, well, it's not really sexy, so I'll pass it down to my sort of creative juniors, and they come back with some ideas, and I pick the main one. Not anymore. They can just run it through the system, and it's almost like they've got a bank of creative juniors, and they can sort of pick the idea that they want to respond, and super fast they can get back to whoever the account manager is or the account agent. Yeah, it just changes some of these functional roles through taking some of these knowledge-based processes that they have to go through and speeding them right up. Now, you could argue that you do need some of that time, some of that gap to sort of digest. I mean, if you're getting back to your customers within like 3 minutes, they might be a bit, where's the value? But it still takes thought. You still have to make the judgment, as I said earlier. You still got to think through, is this the right approach? The efficiencies that it brings to an agency, especially, and to marketing teams as well, just phenomenal.
That's enormous efficiencies. And Fergus, tell us a bit about what's happening for you next year, or maybe even the year after, in terms of how you're adopting AI across the business.
Well, we know we're continually building our own product line out, so that product improves all the time. So we've recently added in all sorts of functionality around video and how video is incorporated into what we do. So we're always, like I mentioned, I'm sort of a techie really at heart. So I can't help myself but be very involved in what's coming down the line. Agents, we were very early on to. Entire business is built on top of AI agents, but I think 2025 people are going to see a lot more about that, because it is much more human in a way. It's weird. It's like you're actually giving an entity the freedom to go off and do whatever it needs to do to get a task done, rather than a chatbot, which is sort of what ChatGPT is all about, where you're having to respond the whole time. So that's going to be a big shift, and as the world gets more used to that, then hopefully they'll sort of come around to our way of thinking. I think video is the sort of one medium that hasn't quite. It's very close. We've had some recent releases, one out of Google and one out of OpenAI. The models, they're still some way away from being production ready, but they're so close. And I think this 2025, that's going to be an interesting year to see even the image models and the video models, that they may just get to the point now where suddenly we start to see them used in production a lot more out in the wild. We're less involved with the actual creation and generation of output, and much more about processes and systems and how you run your company, because we see that's where all the, at the end of the day, services, business agencies, marketing teams, they're essentially, as you mentioned earlier, people businesses, which means you're selling time. And so any minute, any hour you can bring back or give back to the business is money to the bottom line, really. So that's our focus, really.
So for you, you've got this really nice mix of people and AI. So with people, you want to make sure that the culture's right. And then it's about using AI to bring in better processes and better systems and help you run the business in a much more efficient way.
Yes. I guess that's what so much of business is about. You're trying to drive down your costs and drive up your revenue, and the difference is the profit you take home at the end. So anything that's going to help you do that is something you're interested in. With the added part, which is it just feels like almost like a societal shift as well. AI is a big shift in how we think even about our own mortality and consciousness. Like all these things start to become questions, really. At what point? So that's why I think that's why it's got everyone so het up. I often describe that I haven't been as excited about a technology like this since I first saw the internet. So when I first saw the internet, I was at uni, it'd been around for a couple of years or so, and I got access and I was sort of like, this is it, this is the thing. I lived through the mobile revolution, crypto, all these other sort of things that have come along, which I've dipped into, had some interest in, but nothing since the internet until this moment have I thought, holy smokes, this is a point in history that will be a marker on the graph that just changes, society, work, economics, all these things are going to get shifted. Just things like GPT-01 preview, or even the main one now, has gotten really good at medical diagnosis. Well, you can give that now to some of the poorest people in the world, and they've got access to a medical diagnosis that they just didn't have for essentially nothing. Like these things are huge opportunities to sort of level up the entire planet.
And it's like you saying, we shouldn't be fearful of this. It's happening anyway. We must embrace it. And there is actually abundance and opportunity available to us all if we're just willing to lean in.
We shouldn't, but that's easier said than done. I totally understand why it's frightening and scary, and I totally get it. It's even in my own company, I sit there and think, sometimes we build things and I think, is there any point in doing this? Because, it's going to get wiped out by the next thing. But so I totally understand why people have that worry and fear. But as I said earlier, there's being fearful and there's understanding it's just going to happen anyway. So you're better off trying to think about what you might do about it, which again, it's easier said than done. It's like, but if you can for a minute, sort of step outside of yourself and sort of go, okay, this is what's going to happen in 10 years' time. It's going to look like this. What should I look like as a consequence?
I love that. What a lovely way to finish. What should I look like as a consequence? Fergus, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I've learned so much from you about running a business enabled by AI, and where you're at and where you're heading towards sounds super interesting. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it. Loved it.